date is May 17, 2018. The time is 6:30 PM. David Champy II. Gary Ciccarone.
Here.
Ed Comeau.
Here.
Stephen Bailey.
Here.
Dianne Smith.
Here.
Tim Straz.
Here.
Rick Charette. We do have a quorum, sir.
We do. Okay, Town of Brookfield Planning Board agenda for tonight is appointment of alternates. We have none, so we're not appointing any. And public comments before we take care of it. Yeah. Okay, the first thing on the agenda is to review the application from Mr. Bradadero to make sure it is complete. And the first thing we'll go to is the notice, the mailings. We have all of that there.
Yes, we are missing a when reply.
Yeah, that, but it was sent.
Yes, it was,
And
and it is stamped.
the reply is, in effect, not necessary as long as it's certified mail, so. And you have a copy of the check?
Yes, I do. For $427.
Okay. I invite the board to review all of this documentation so we can vote on its completeness. Yep. I pass it around. If anybody in the audience would like to make a public comment, there's a sign-in sheet. You're not required, so. I thought we were gonna have some people here tonight.
I shouldn't have told them what we're doing when they would have stayed, at least for this part.
It was exciting. We would actually have an audience.
Are we going to go by the checklist or any book?
Yeah, I don't have my book, that's the problem.
Okay, so which checklist is
I
it?
want to steal Diane's checklist if I can.
Well,
Are you talking about?
Do I have a checklist here?
Yes.
I misplaced my book. And I don't, I'll have to.
I have this. I have this part.
Let me borrow your checklist.
Oh, okay.
So it would be this.
All right, no, I have
It's just these
the
items?
hearing list, but the checklist.
Because this is what he's applying for.
Complete pages 1 through 6 and include the following.
We have a checklist for all the particular items.
So the comprehensive application is basically for all of the different kinds. So site plan review, it would be an LLA. So what happens is, it specifically states for an LLA, you need pages such and such to be filled in.
Yeah, I haven't done this for 2.5 years, so I forget.
Yeah.
And old age helps too.
Sure. So,
Well,
I think we need to use this, not this.
all right, where's the other one?
so, this is page 3. Okay. So here it is, the lot line adjustment right here. It'll say complete pages 1 through 6.
Okay, great.
A lot of work.
Okay, we're going through this. We need 4 plats. We have them, they're here.
Now. Yeah.
And we have a Mylar. Yeah, open one of the top for us.
This is one of the-
You can, oh, yeah, open it up.
This is the Mylar?
Yeah, and we'll take it out and we'll sign it. It's identical to that.
So, yeah.
It's pretty cut and dry lot line change.
Getting back on
What's that?
Yes.
When we did this last time,
Here, you can have this
I
one.
remember that we.
I just looked at it. Oh, you did? Yes, I did. Thank you.
We'll just go through the process. Because we were checking the details on the plan. When we did the lot line adjustment before?
Say again?
When we reviewed the lot line adjustment over on the lake property.
I wasn't in that one, so I don't know.
I know you weren't. that's why I'm posing the question. I think Ed was the only one that
Go
was
ahead.
here. I don't think Steve was here. Or were you,
No.
Steve?
No.
Okay.
I was here.
Thank you.
Did we what?
I remember spending a lot of time ensuring that the information was accurate on the plat.
Yeah, we went through, is there the compass? And
Right.
Is there a block that was a certain size?
Right,
And
so-
is there an engineer stamp? Is there, et cetera?
Okay, so then we must have used this.
Yes,
Okay, so,
not just this.
so this is the detail, even though this is the final, well, this is the final plan.
Correct.
Okay, all right, so here, I'm gonna give you that, because that's important.
And it should say how many, if we did receive back all of the mailings and we had checked to make sure. that the
Well, let's
letters-
let's do these one at a time anyway, and get through them and not hold the payment up here all night.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, all the items that are in here are all a legal requirement on an A2 survey that a licensed surveyor would provide. If he signs one that isn't complete, the onus is on him, not the planning board, which he would never do. Brian would not make those kind of mistakes on something as simple, but we can go through it. I mean, I'm not objecting to that.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. Just-
No,
just-
let's go through it. The type of the survey, boundary survey, that this is a lot line adjustment. And there it is, the lot
Okay,
line.
it says boundary line adjustment.
Yep. And there is the illustration, old line, new line.
Well, what's on the rules of procedure?
Pardon me?
What's on the rules of procedure? What's the next?
Well, the next one is the owner of record. That's David Godero. The title of plat or development, boundary line adjustment. Tax map number,
Yep,
and that's 1728.
and
28B. Name of the town in which the parcel is located,
Yes,
and the plat revision dates. And they are also either right here, yep. If there's no revision, but there's a plat date.
drawing ID, and, okay, this is the block that
Yeah,
we're
there's the-
looking for?
There's the date.
Okay.
We don't have any revisions because we didn't stipulate, so there would only be the one date.
Okay,
So
Next.
that pretty much covers it, the items on the list. The other things here are for the Mylar, the signature block with 7 signatures, which we're going to do if and when we approve the lot line change. We'll get to that later at the end of the hearing.
okay, what are these here?
We just went through,
We just went through those.
I just,
Oh,
we
sorry.
just went through them.
Okay, sorry. And adequate space on the plat for recording the registered plane
Yeah,
number.
that
There's
would be
plenty
on
of
the
space.
Mylar.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And the signature blocks on the Mylar as well, and
We had signed all of the individual,
we can sign all these, absolutely. We should sign them,
okay,
but the Mylar's the one that goes to the county.
right. Okay.
But that's only after we go through the meeting and the hearing and approve everything, if we are going to do so, then we will sign all of them.
Okay,
And there's a mailing tube
yes,
Yeah.
that was on there too.
So,
missing an
let
end.
me see if there's anything on page number 2 here.
George did that.
Page number 2. Certification that the applicant is owner, yes, you are the owner agent, and you're listed as the owner agent, and that has been verified by the tax assessor. And the certified land surveyor, and that is Brian Berlin, and he is a certified land surveyor.
And the plats appear to be signed or initialed by him.
And everything is legible for reproduction, and it has a scale. North arrow, shading over any text shall not be permitted on any plat, which he doesn't have, he wouldn't do that. And no lines, whether hatching, boundary lines, or topo contours shall obstruct or interfere with the legibility either before or after reproduction of any bearing, dimensions, or text.
There's really no topo lines, it's the only lines other than boundary lines are
No.
stone walls and the wetland boundaries.
Yeah, and a lot line change, you wouldn't need to do topo, so.
Yep, okay.
Date, name, location of site subdivision, which is not applicable here. Track, boundary lines, right-of-way lines of streets, names, maps, easements, and other right-of-way, they're illustrated in here. You can look at it, the streets are listed. The lots are numbered consecutively as instructed by the engineer in consultation with the town of Brookfield assessor clerk. They are numbered. 28 and 28B. Are they listed
Yes.
on, are they listed on?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any easements here dedicated to public use? So we don't have to deal with that.
There are none? Okay.
The identity and location for all abutters to the tract to be developed, divided, showing approximate location of the structures thereon, including access roads. There's no,
That's not applicable.
no, it's not applicable, because this is a lot line change, not a subdivision.
Right.
And the location and description of all monuments, they are there. Iron pipe found, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Plans and profiles of water supply, wells, storm drains, culverts, catch basins, head walls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Most of that's not applicable here, except for the water, high water mark, which should be illustrated there.
Well, yeah, it's, right.
Number 8 is irrelevant. New Hampshire approvals, we don't have any of those requirements here. There are no septic applications in yet, I believe.
Nope, not yet.
9. Shape, size, and height, location, there are no existing structures. Man-made features, but not such as, but not limited to existing road structures, et cetera, they're not.
Yeah, there is. There's an existing driveway with a permit number associated with it, and it's on the plat.
That's the wetlands crossing permit that we got when we put in the driveway.
That's from the
Sorry,
state.
wetlands crossing, not the driveway.
10 years
Sorry.
ago.
Doesn't forest, does it?
Architects rendering of proposed buildings, there are no architects renderings yet.
No,
A vicinity sketch no smaller than 1 inch. There should be a vicinity sketch right here. Yep. Soils map showing all soil types, delineating any poorly or very poorly drained soils. He's got wetlands notated, which is pretty much what that is all about.
Right.
Okay, the location, size, direction of travel, if appropriate, curving, paving, radii of streets, roadways, driveways, most of that. Sidewalks is not applicable here. And the layout of all on-site parking and loading facilities is not applicable. Proposed landscaping and screening is not applicable at this time and won't be actually. The location type, design of outdoor lighting, location, these are mostly for
subdivision.
construction details for
Right.
subdivision, so they're not applicable, but I read them off just so that we covered all the bases and nobody has any questions. So I'm gonna set that back in your hand because you own it. And I'm going to go back to the list of things that we need to make sure are complete. Now that we've gone through the map, we have 4 plats by a licensed Hampshire surveyor. Any appropriate engineering drawing was presented with the application at the public hearing. They're here. 1 11 by 17 copy of the plat. We have that, George?
Yes, it's that high. The one, 11 by 17.
11 by 17.
It should be
Right I don't see it, but I'm sure it's here. Is it underneath me? Yeah, there it is. Okay, we've got that one. One Mylar with a mailing tube, we have that. 3 sets of address mailing labels, 10 business envelopes, certified mail forms as per butter notification, page 8.
They were all sent.
We have them there, and the assessor clerk has reviewed that. Have you any comments? You're a late public. We'll give you the opportunity because it won't be overwhelming.
Well, we haven't opened the public hearing yet.
No, but public comments was the first order on the agenda.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
I don't have any.
Okay. Figure we'd let you in the door just for the heck of it.
What about the application fees?
Yeah, we have a certified check copy. And that comes to $427, and there is a copy of the check.
Okay. All right.
It appears that this is complete, short of one return mailing by an abutter who didn't mail it, but we sent him a certified mailing, so that satisfies the town's and the applicant's obligation. And that is all of the items on lot line adjustment. Anybody have any questions about the completeness of this package that we have here in front of us?
Which is the resident that didn't return?
Monteforte?
They were the folks that were just here, they were in Florida.
Oh. Should say Monteforte at the top of it.
So it's okay if we proceed without having that? That's what
We
I'm
are
saying.
obligated to mail them certified mail, notifying them of a potential lot line change. They are not obligated to respond.
Okay.
This is really an innocuous lot line change too. It isn't going to affect not even the squirrels or the birds, so I can't imagine any human beings getting uptight about
That's
that.
good practice.
Just following the procedure.
No,
Check.
we've satisfied our obligation, and so is David.
So do you need a motion?
Yes, I do need a motion to accept the application package as complete.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Okay, any discussion? Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of accepting the application of Mr. Bonadero as complete?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The motion is passed. The application is complete. We can now go to the public hearing. Let me put all this business together so we don't get it confused on the paperwork. I'm liable to do that. Okay. This all goes together. I keep this. This, okay, good. That's all close there. We'll be signing those later, so don't bother clipping them. Don't you gotta turn something in?
We're supposed to mark the time, but I don't know where it is, but I do know we're supposed to mark the time when the hearing actually starts. Okay, I'm sorry, it's here.
Let me read it. Okay, it's 10 minutes of 7, and I am calling this hearing to order. This is note the time to ask the people who wish to address the board complete a sign-in sheet with the secretary. Would you like to address the board? Okay. Then we don't have any requirements to sign anybody in. Okay, I have to explain the hearing procedure and state the rules of conduct. This is tedious part, but it's necessary. Address all questions and comments to the chair. Parties will not address each other directly during the hearing. Identify yourself and your address before you speak. Do not engage in side conversations. The chair shall read the text of the notice. The board shall review the application with a list of application submittal requirements specified by the applicable regulations to see if it is complete. We have done that. Official acceptance or rejection shall be by motion and vote. If rejected, the board shall identify the deficiencies in writing and forward it to the applicant. We don't need to finish reading this. We've already been through that procedure. The chair shall ask the person who will speak to the application to identify himself or herself and state whether he or she is the owner or authorized agent. The chair shall invite the applicant or agent to make a presentation. The chair shall ask the board for questions or comments. The chair shall open the hearing to comments or questions from the public. The chair shall read into the record written comments from the public, and the chair shall invite applicant or agent to provide additional information in response to public comments or questions. The chair shall close the hearing to public comment, and the chair shall invite the applicant or agent to provide additional information. The chair shall ask the board for additional questions or comments. Excuse me. The chair shall invite the applicant or agent to provide additional information in response to any questions or comments from the board. More. Okay. The chair shall close the hearing and invite the board to deliberate. The board shall ascertain the cost of an on and off-site improvements and require security alone. It's not relevant here. And the board shall establish conditions of approval. The board shall vote to approve with conditions or disapprove. If disapproved, the board shall provide the reasons for disapproval to the applicant in writing within 5 business days of the decision by return receipt mail. The rest is non-appearance. You appeared, so we won't even get into that. Okay. So, let me get to my appropriate.
You're looking for your agenda?
I have my agenda right here, but that's not what I'm looking for.
That's the minutes.
No, that's the draft from April.
That's the minutes of the meeting. We haven't got that yet.
What are you looking for?
Any other things that I'm supposed to read to the public before I go to
No,
the next
I don't
step?
think so. I think it's now.
I knew there was something. I must read the notice of public hearing into the record. A public hearing will be held at the Brookfield Town Office. This is the posting and the publication. Building 267 Wentworth Road, Brookfield, New Hampshire, 03872 on May 17th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. on the application of David Goodadero for approval of lot line adjustment of TAP Max 17, lot 28 and 28B located at 278 and 286 Wentworth Road. The application will be reviewed for completeness at the planning board meeting on May 17th, 2018. Upon a finding by the board that the application meets the subdivision requirements, or submission requirements, of the lot line adjustment regulations, and if the board votes to accept the application as complete, a public hearing on the merits of the proposal will follow immediately. Should a decision to approve or reject the lot line adjustment not be reached at the public hearing, the hearing may be continued to subsequent planning board meetings on the 3rd Thursday of every month at the Brookfield Town Office Building at 6:30 p.m. and this application will stay on the planning board agenda until such time as either approved or disapproved. Anyone needing assistance to attend this meeting or further information should contact the planning board administrative assistant at 522-3688. The application is available for inspection at Brookfield Town Offices in the planning board room. The town offices are open Monday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Thursday at 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Friday at 8:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. For additional available times, please contact the planning board chair or administrative assistant by calling 522-3688. That's it. The public hearing is now open.
Should we, Mr. Chair, should we vote to open it and then vote to close the public hearing? We didn't usually.
No, the chair opens
Thank you.
the meeting and closes the hearing. Well, we've reviewed all of this, and there really isn't anything more to say, except does the board have any questions or comments about any of this?
Does the
I
public
think-
have any comments?
And of course, the public.
Doesn't the proponent have an opportunity to make a presentation?
He has an opportunity, well, that's down the road,
Oh,
but
sorry.
we may have some questions
Okay.
that we might want to ask him. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. Are the
Okay.
monuments in place? The new pins?
If you open the plot, they're exhibited on the survey, and Land Tech notated what they were and where they were. I happened to look at that, but if you could open it up, look at it again.
No, I recall in the past that when the new pins were put in, there was usually a letter or something from the engineering firm saying or stating that they put them in place.
They noted on the site plan.
And then it's stamped, so you would assume that he has done that. Okay. I'm satisfied.
Do you have anything you wish to say?
No, I'd be glad to make another presentation if you guys want, but we did it at the last. I'd be glad to make another presentation, but we did it at the last meeting.
Yeah, this is,
But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
does anyone have any particular? Well, then the next order of agenda is a vote to approve or disapprove this lot line adjustment. Does anyone wish to make a motion? Joe? Am I in the wrong ballpark again? Go ahead. It's okay.
So I believe that the public hearing should be closed.
Before we vote and
Yes.
deliberate. Okay. Since there are no people here, very good, Jan. Thank you. Seeing that there are no public comments and that the members of the board have no further issues or questions, the hearing is now closed. And we are going to deliberate on this if there are any things to deliberate on.
Mr. Chair?
Huh?
I move to accept the lot line adjustment application.
No,
Lot line adjustment.
lot line adjustment to,
Okay.
yeah, we've already accepted the application.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Second.
Excellent.
I'm sorry. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. Is this a motion to approve the application? I just want to make sure. I
Yes.
understand. Is that right?
Did you make that
We
motion?
already approved the application. I
No,
know-
no, this is a motion to approve the lot line adjustments. That's what.
Yes.
Not correct, but you said that.
I did say it wrong, yes. So before we were, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
No, shoot.
the vote was to accept it as complete. So now it's to accept the lot line adjustment as
Presented.
Submitted.
Submitted, that's better. That's better.
Good.
Sorry.
Now that we have the right wording, and you second it?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
second this, Ed's corrected motion.
Okay. All in favor of approval of accepting this lot line division?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody not in favor of it? Any abstentions? Then you have a lot line adjustment.
Thank you very much.
Pardon me?
And we need to sign.
We need to sign all of this stuff, yeah. But after we, yeah, let's do it. That was my first public hearing in 3 years. Just like once you ride a bicycle, you know. We're gonna do all of these, so let's do this. Let's pass them around one at a time. The date is 17, yeah.
517.
I know, we have a lot of
This is, no, it does the restaurant wrong.
Okay.
And the old one went through my driveway.
Okay. We'll just pass it around and I'll do these one at a time. I don't even need a hug. All right, thank you. The official penny.
It's done in blue so that you can know it's the original, that's why. So if you use a black pen, you can't tell if somebody made a copy of it.
You know,
What?
no, I was gonna comment about George's comment.
Okay.
Comment on the comment.
I subscribe to the same theory. Every time I go to some
Thank you, Scott. You're welcome.
Okay, we got this in, I sent it to you. You got this? Sure.
Yes, since I messed up somebody. The board game, games on some new features. Appreciate it.
The web line,
Yeah, I'm gonna need you to, if you don't mind, sign that with the blue pen.
well, I haven't signed this one yet. Signed black.
Shame on you.
It's in trouble too.
We got some in blue in there.
What are we doing signing in, I'm not supposed to be signing in blue?
You are.
Yeah.
You're doing it correctly.
That's Scott Davis.
I am?
Yes.
Signature on it.
Are you an attorney?
No.
The chair can sign it in pink. Hey, okay. That will be the last one.
See you later.
Miles, or you guys need, am I good?
You good?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always a fun problem.
Congratulations, David.
Is that one, that was good.
So these are complete?
They have been signed, yeah. And that one's good, this one's got to be done, right? Those two. Yep. Okay, we'll see each other now. Right here.
Here's another.
Okay, okay. This is part of the package.
No, this is more.
Well, that's mail?
Yes, that's part of the
I got all that, all right.
There's one more there.
Seacoast Media Group. What's this for?
The official.
That's Foster's, that's the Foster's
Yes,
bill.
exactly.
For what?
The ad,
For the ad.
For the hearing?
Publication.
For the hearing.
For the hearing.
Yes.
Why wouldn't that go in the package? Just curious.
because we pay it.
We have to submit that to the treasurer, so they say, because they sent it to us, I just brought.
Oh, we don't want a copy or anything? Okay, good, fine. Don't let me kick tradition in the pants.
So I'll submit this to the treasurer.
Okay, we're all done. With that, the hearing, et cetera. Now we're on to
With
agenda.
number 6.
Okay, announcements, correspondence, email. I don't have any announcements. And we have, I haven't ever seen this before. It's says conventionalism says hard work isn't fun.
Convene is the name of the periodical.
Convene, design, thinking. Oh, I haven't seen this one before. It used to be Our Town was the one I was before.
Town and city or something like that.
Town and City or something.
The selectmen get that.
Well, it's here for anyone that wants to review it. Caesar's Forum. Well, everybody's welcome to take a look. Let's go through the minutes. That's our next item on the agenda. Everybody there?
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the meeting minutes as presented from Thursday, April 19th, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
About discussion,
Oh,
sorry.
I don't, that comes before the vote.
After the vote?
Yeah, after the vote. Any discussion on the minutes? Does anybody
Yes.
have any objections? Okay.
I have a comment.
I would,
Um,
I'm surprised.
On page 2 of 3, item 12, under public comments, B, it says that Ziadeh suggested that forward-thinking approach was in order to reduce taxes for businesses and senior housing. That's not quite what he had said.
You mentioned school.
And I, rather than, since David has left, I was hoping that he'd still be here for this and maybe he could clarify what he had said. But may I suggest that, I know he was talking about residents, not businesses.
Well, we don't have any businesses, so.
Well, we have home businesses.
And senior housing.
And senior housing was just in the mix of the options to consider. So may I suggest that we amend this sentence and strike the words businesses in senior housing and insert the word residents or taxpayers, I don't care which way. And then I think it would be in keeping with what you had said.
I don't have a problem with that. Does anyone else have a problem with striking that?
Agreed.
Huh?
Agreed. That was in the spirit of discussion.
Strike businesses and, I'm sorry,
And senior housing, and replace that with taxpayers?
Yes.
Well, that was a suggestion. I don't know that it means much to.
Well, it misrepresents what he had said.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, if we're striking it, I wouldn't want to insert anything else.
Oh, you're
If he were-
suggesting to reduce taxes, period?
Yes.
Reduce taxes.
Just leave it at that.
I amend my suggestion.
He's not here to
effect.
contribute, so I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Okay.
So, I'll second that myself. Did you, was that a motion?
I move that we,
We had my motion open already.
I'm sorry, what was your motion?
My motion was to accept the minutes as presented.
Would you
And
retract
then
that?
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, thank you for keeping me kosher. And your motion?
my motion is to accept the minutes as presented with one correction, and that is on section 12B, to end the first sentence after the words reduce taxes, period.
I'll second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
I wasn't here for the meeting, so.
We have an abstention. Okay. Would you like to make your motion now, Senor?
I just think we accepted it.
We just made we just did the
Just
amendment.
No, we-
Dianne accepted it with the changes. She made a
Did you make your
motion,
motion?
she made a motion to accept the minutes.
The
With the
changes
changes.
as I described,
And then I
yes.
seconded it.
Oh, okay. I misheard that whole thing. So I thought you made a motion to amend it only.
No.
You just made a
I
motion.
shortcutted.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we had to make a motion to amend and then a motion to, but that's okay. Leave it be. We're all happy. That item of business is done. Okay. New business, proposed changes to the rules of procedure, bulletin board postings. We already talked about that because somebody destroyed the other bulletin board.
We didn't talk about it in the public part of the meeting, but this all relates to the bulletin board at Stone Corner Road. Because that no longer exists, then the rules of procedure has to be changed, so it doesn't still tell the administrator to go and put it up on that. So that's what that change is.
So we have to change the rules of procedure.
Correct.
Okay, I don't have a copy of the rules of procedure for that. Do you? We need to find that in the rules of procedure and see just what it reads and how we have to change it if we're gonna make. We can do that as a housekeeping issue, we don't have to take it to the meeting. Thanks, George. Mine is 5 years old anyway. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm in the right place, but I don't see anything that says two building boards. Maybe I'm
I think
missing.
it's page 12.
Good.
George, had you identified the sections associated with these?
Public notice.
I don't.
Okay, all right. So on page 12, under public notice, item 13, 1.
I see it. Yeah, it says 3 public places. I don't know if we actually could consider a publication in the paper as a posting in a public place. We are obligated to do that. No?
Not for our regular scheduled meetings.
So it mentions Stone Quarter Bulletin Board by name.
Correct.
Okay.
Which technically no longer exists by a vote of the select board.
So we should change the rules of procedure, it appears, to 2 public places. including the exterior of the town office bulletin board and the town website, strike stone corners bulletin boards. That makes sense, everybody?
That makes perfect sense.
Yes. I get, choose me one that black pen, will you? Thank you. I'm gonna change the 3 to a 2. And strike the stone bulletin board, including the exterior town office bulletin board and town website. That mean we all have to get a new page? I guess so.
I'm gonna have to do the whole thing.
The whole,
Just do the page.
you have to do the
Formatting must, it's gonna be that.
Well, I mean, at the very bottom, if I may, Mr. Chairman, at the very bottom, it actually lists the date.
December 21st, 2017.
And on page, I believe it's 16, the town clerk has to certify that as well. So.
Wow. This is the whole book.
Also, we have another change. Mr.
Perhaps we should look at all the changes that have to be made, that we want to make, before we jump off the dock. Well, so you don't have to make this thing 5 different times.
Is this document, this is in a Word document, is it not?
Yes.
Might it be useful to do a search for Stoneham, the word Stoneham,
Yeah.
and that, just to make sure that the rest of the whole document is clear?
So if somebody amongst the planning board would like to make a motion that any place regarding Stoneham bulletin board be excluded from the document and that the administrative assistant be given authority to exclude that, that would be great.
So moved. I just need a second.
Second.
What's the motion exactly, so I get it in my head?
Then all references regarding the Stoneham Four Corners bulletin board be excluded from the document, and that the administrative assistant be given authority to amend the document as required, that there's only 2 places that are required for postings.
Well, that's a long motion. Okay. Is
That was my motion.
that's your motion?
Yes.
And you seconded it? You seconded it?
Steve did.
Okay, any other discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? That's what we're gonna do.
And we'll put that, Mr. Chairman, we'll put that on the agenda next meeting to review that, to make sure it's correct.
Yeah. Now, comprehensive application. First of all, as members of the board, does anybody see anything else in here that doesn't quite jive? So we can, if he's gonna do this and reprint these, this doesn't have to be done by tomorrow afternoon either. I would suggest that we've made this motion, but we don't put you in the position of accomplishing the work till next meeting. And then we all get a shot at looking at this if we're willing to do a little bit of homework and seeing if there's any other changes that we should, these are housekeeping issues. We can do this without town meeting. That I know for sure. So we should actually read through this one time, and if we come up with anything else, make it a one-time effort for George. Does that sound sensible?
Yes. Sounds
Yeah,
sensible.
that's a good idea.
So we've voted on this, we've accepted that change. Let's look for further changes that we want to make before next meeting.
Well, we accepted in a motion to allow him to make the change, that one change.
That one change. And we should look for anything else we want to do before we actually put through the process of reprinting all this. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
So my question is number 2, item number 2.
Yeah, so page 1 of the comprehensive application.
So this isn't really under rules of procedures then?
Yes, it is, because that is part of the rules of procedure. So B of, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I have permission, I apologize.
No, go ahead.
So page 1 of the comprehensive application, section B, I think it's the second sentence makes reference to the second or first Monday of the month. That should be changed to third Thursday of the month.
We're gonna change that back. We're leaving it at third Thursday.
Yes, but right now it still says.
This planning board meetings are held the second Monday of each month.
That's what we used to have our meetings on.
Yes. Yes.
We changed it for Rick Surratt, who was working in Massachusetts at the time.
By the way, I found another
You did?
Stone
It's
Corners.
appendix B.
Okay, good. So we
Yeah.
have
Reference.
one.
Oh, yeah, there's more than one. We're right on the next page.
So, Mr. Chairman, similarly to the first motion we made about this subject, I would also make that same motion to effectively changing this meeting time and allow him to make that change.
And any reference.
Are you making a motion?
That was the motion I was making.
Okay, do I have a second? That covers that base as well.
I'll wait for discussion.
You second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Discussion.
any other discussion?
I would say we would need to update any references to the meeting time within this document to be the third Thursday of the month.
Yes. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Does it say 6:30 in the
Huh?
rule?
Does not reference a time.
Well, I think these motions are standing, they can be corrected at any time. If we find that we've made a motion that doesn't quite cover the base adequately, that's why I don't want to have them print any of this up between this meeting and that. I'll take it home and look at it, see if I see any anomalies, and you all can do the same if you're so inclined. Next meeting, we'll put that on the agenda to go through this and make any other changes we need to do to correct typos or any other crazy things. So, I think that covers A,
Need to vote.
huh? At the moment.
We have a second for discussion, we need to vote.
Did we, oh, we didn't vote on it, well, it's 7 o'clock at night. No coffee. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. George, you've got it. Thank you. B, agritourism. Where are we going with that? I missed a lot of meetings. I mean, I just started back up, and I don't know what you've been doing with agritourism.
Well, you were here for the last meeting, and
Well, that, I remember that
The
much, but is there
chair-
any previews?
no, the chair had asked us to all come prepared to talk about agritourism, and he had some specific points that he was considering, I think, but
He's not here.
he's not here. And
I suggest we postpone
Well, let's postpone it, yeah, sure, because David wants to be involved in that.
this.
Now, I'm sorry.
Huh?
Mr. Chair, the definition, if we're not going to talk about it now, I'll bring it up next.
You can talk about it, we're not gonna make any decisions.
Well, I recall that the definition of agritourism was
Taken
updated.
out.
But it stayed.
well, I only have I have last year's book, and it was removed.
It was updated. The new law updated and defined it better because there was an issue. But I didn't want to bring it up now because it's going to turn into a long conversation. That would be better.
Wait for
Sir,
David to come in, because
consider and talk about it.
it's a thing of his.
I just found it out.
Okay. I agree, actually.
Yeah.
I know he wants to say it, so, and actually Rick Surratt wants to put 3 or 4 cents in on that one too. So let's leave agritourism on the back burner and go to detached ADUs. Accessory dwelling units, I presume.
Now, this also got added, I believe, because the law change for the detached ADUs, but I don't recall why it was put
We didn't talk
on
about
the
this at
agenda.
all.
But I don't know why it's from.
So, yeah, so last year, I believe it was, the chairman had asked me to put that on the agenda for after the March meeting. So I should have put it on April's March meeting. But that was actually last year when he wanted me to put that on the agenda.
After the March meeting, after the vote had passed to accept having the town legislature pass that warrant article.
I'm assuming so.
Now, you seeing that you're at the state now, can you give a little recap on what the changes are with the state, a synopsis?
There was no change according to this book. This is the most up-to-date book, isn't it?
Well, that's why I'd asked, I don't know why this was added.
Yeah, because I'm comparing what I had, and there's no difference. That, if they change the ADU regulations, and I remember, and I didn't have time to go research there was something that was brought up after the initial law was passed, some kind of modification that was being discussed. I wasn't following it, and so I looked at the detached, and these are exactly as it was when the law went into effect June 1st of 2017. So evidently there's some other issue that precipitated this being as George just said, it was just a tickler to discuss it in the future.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if I may again, I do believe that what happened was, since as far as I know, we do not have anything in our zoning ordinance regarding attached ADUs. And I think that's what the conversation was, as to whether or not we wanted to consider that for a possible warrant article for the future.
That was
We have nothing in here about detached ADUs?
Attached.
We actually
detached.
detached.
That's what I said,
I'm sorry,
detached.
I made a mistake.
There was a draft section for detached ADUs, but we chose, as a board, to not put that into the first round of changes for the zoning ordinance. But I don't know whether or not anyone, I did notice with interest that in the town report for 2017, that there were several, under the code enforcement officers section, that there were at least 2 permits issued for mother-in-law apartments. It's like, okay, they're ADUs.
That doesn't necessarily mean a detached.
No, they wouldn't be detached because those aren't permitted. You have to specifically permit that within the town. The law, it's a separate section, and the town has to specifically identify that detached ADUs are allowed. In Brookfield, the zoning ordinance is that only attached,
Yeah.
or that is part of the primary dwelling unit.
Right. Otherwise, you're involved in creating a whole set of ordinances governing size, stature, perhaps septic design. In other words, you're putting, in essence, 2 buildings on 1 lot.
Right. And in fact, that's one of the differences in the law, is that if this is the last sentence, if a municipality allows detached accessory dwelling units, it may require an increased lot size, which is specifically not allowed, or not required, I can't remember what the right phraseology is, for a attached ADU to the primary dwelling unit.
Well, we don't have a detached ADU.
Zoning, that's correct, we do
We
not.
can't do it.
With the current zoning, it is not allowed.
Correct. And I suppose if someone wanted to take it to the ZBA, they could. That doesn't mean it would be approved.
No, it couldn't be approved because it's not,
Part of the zoning ordinance.
it's not, right, it's not allowed.
Well,
But at any rate.
technically speaking, unless we expressly forbid it under any circumstance, it's not disallowed either. And a hardship might be, for instance, let's say you had a handicapped parent and you wanted to put up a little accessory dwelling unit for your mother and your father-in-law. If it isn't expressly forbidden, someone could take it to the ZBA, not that that would be approved or could, it would become sort of a battleground. Because there's no forbidding, if something's forbidden, it's forbidden, if it's not.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, if I may just add something. So, according to the state of New Hampshire, the laws require a permissive zoning. That means it has to specifically be permitted. However, one of the requirements the ZBA goes by is hardship, and that would cover under what you were saying there. That might be an arguable situation concerning the.
it might be, making it permissible. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not an attorney, I don't pretend to be one, but that situation could conceivably arise. I mean, we're a small town, it's not likely gonna rear its head.
Well, I think it'd be also an interesting discussion to see, you know, what the interest has been. I mean, and other than what I read in the town report, I haven't heard anything about ADUs having been approved for construction. So I think it's worth having it as, you know, revisiting that newest part of our zoning ordinance to see how it's working.
Mr. Chairman, I would say we could forego the discussion about the detached ADUs for now, since a lot of the board is not here.
I was about to make that
And I-
suggestion,
Sorry. Okay.
but it's a complex issue anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is something we're gonna figure out in an hour and a half. And, so, we'll table it for tonight. Discussion.
Before you go on, what is the section of the book? Where the
It's
detached
six RSA 674, 71, colon 71 through 73.
73. So everybody should go home and read that and be ready to talk about it next time.
I actually will, I'm more interested in going through and finding things we have to fix here, but,
In the rules of procedure.
yeah. D, discussion of regarding SRPC dues. I was the first one to move that we stopped paying them. It's 7 years SRPC.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
before we start talking about the dues, can we enter into the discussion, or should we do that under old business, about the books? We had an issue with how many books
Quantity
we
of
bought, and I don't know if we should do that now under old business. It's up to you. It's right after it, so it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, we can we're either gonna discuss the dues or the books, but they're two separate items for discussion. Let's just hit the dues quick and then we'll go on to the books.
Versus the don'ts.
First, how much was, Mr. Chair, how much was the dues this year? 800 something?
I have not received the bill from them. From what I gather, I think it was delivered.
The selection.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, if I may.
Cool.
Thank you.
Sure.
So I think it's been brought up again through third party, from what I understand, because they are requiring a signature specifically stating that we are not paying the dues.
We've always done that, right?
The selectmen.
Huh?
The selectmen always had referred to us if we were going to any, when they saw that they signed it, although I don't know where that requirement came in.
I remember it always was a specific requirement that somebody signed.
There was no requirement, it was just a tradition.
They asked us, they begged us for that.
I would expect that SRPC probably asked for it, so that,
It's not a requirement, it's just
Yeah,
that
a
they did
requirement.
this for their records. So it looked, like if it was officially voted upon.
We had a substantial discussion about that, and I'm trying to bring it back to memory. The reason that they wanted that in writing, and we had ascertained why, I think. Do you remember that?
We had a long discussion about a tradition or a requirement. There's no legal requirement for us to sign a document saying we're not going to pay it, but we
It had a lot to do with how many votes we had. I think you had 2 votes if you paid the dues and only 1 if you didn't.
Yeah, but that is irrelevant with, I mean, that's the case whether we sign it and send it back or not. If we don't pay, we don't get the vote.
We get a vote, no matter what. We belong to the SRPC. We have no choice in that matter. We are a member.
We get 1 vote only on the MPO. We do
Right.
not get a vote on anything else.
Right.
Excuse me, on the TAC. We don't get to vote on the policy committee.
Unless we pay.
Correct.
Right.
And just for the record, TAC is the Technical Advisory.
Transportation
Transportation.
Advisory Committee for the MPO.
Mr. Chairman, also, I'm going by number now, but the first year that we refused to pay, we also refused to send in a signed document stating that we refused to pay.
I remember that.
And I believe we had referred them to the minutes, but I don't think we need to go there.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think we made a public statement, or I don't think we signed a document saying that we refused to sign. We just never got around to it.
So I'm sorry, why are we talking about this?
It's on the agenda. I didn't put it there. We're talking about it.
Why is it on the agenda,
Mr.
George?
Chair, I can say, I was in the selectmen's meeting when they received the mail where there was a request to sign that about not paying dues.
Ah.
But it's usually transferred to us, and this is why it's sitting in front of us now. So
I got
the
it.
selectmen are waiting for us to make that decision, so I believe they can sign it and then send it back.
Well, back in those days, we had a lot of presentations. There were people here that described the long-term goals of the planning regions. And the whole thing is planners and how they're going to micromanage the future. And I don't think that we were really happy about being micromanaged. And I think that had a lot to do with whether or not we really cared if we had a vote. Go on. Bring your
Well,
members.
every year it comes up, what have we used from, if we needed to contract them for maps or something, we never do it. We never have that. We have a limited budget, and we just always voted not to because it just didn't seem, it's like something we want to spend money on.
Right.
That's been.
It was a budgetary thing, yes. Well, I guess I'm saying we didn't see the value in the dues. Not that we weren't making a point, we're just saving the money. Do we want to still save the money now?
I think that I would just add that there is a new, or will be very shortly, a new executive director. Cynthia Copeland retired, and her replacement is starting, I think, next week or the week after. And while I am one of the representatives from Brookfield on SRPC, or representing Brookfield at SRPC, in addition to Ed, I've learned a lot by going to those meetings of different opportunities and in their communications, but I'm not suggesting at this point that we change what we have been doing historically, but I do think that we ought to consider the new executive director in the future and see whether or not there's perhaps a reason to reconsider the position.
Well, perhaps a policy change, is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think that there's going to be a sea change because we're such a very small community in a large,
I don't mean a policy change for us, I mean a policy change for SRPC.
That's what I mean. I don't think that there's going to be significant changes in that regard, but, we don't know. We don't know.
Does anyone know where they acquire their budget, their cash that they use to implement their
It's
policy?
a variety of different sources. Their most reliable source of funding is transportation. They serve as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is required for transportation planning in the region for the urbanized area. And we are not caught, but we are part of the region, so we are able to participate.
Does anybody know what proportion dues are to their money supply in the overall budget? Does anybody have any
I
idea?
don't know.
There's a pie chart in,
Well, it should be
I don't know if
available.
their book is over there still, but there was a pie chart showing the funding.
It'd be pretty interesting to see that.
Well, some of it's membership dues,
Yeah,
and the other half is federal funding for the MPO,
Does that come from
which
us?
is required.
No.
no.
No, I don't think so. There was a grant for the state, but I don't know how much they got. But, you know, we would talk all night about the value of SRPC, and I don't know that we're really equipped to discuss that, because none of us have the information in front of us.
Yeah, I don't want to go there anyway either, but,
Mr. Chair.
when is there
So
a
the
time they
question-
want us
The
to?
question is still, Ed's suggesting that the Board of Selectmen is looking for direction from the planning board as to whether or not to pay the dues. Am I correct?
Yes.
I have a question for you. Do you know when this is supposed to, is there a due date? Or can we just,
I
when
didn't
we
get
get
the
to
bill, I
it?
have no idea.
Well, no, but I thought as a representative for Brookfield.
No, they don't give me the bill, they just send me
Well, they might
emails.
tell you that.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
do we have the bill that the selectmen have?
I do not have.
well, we'll have to ask them. Well, look, I think that's something the board in entirety probably should vote on. You know, we can have a discussion, and everybody's, do we want to pay the dues or we don't want to pay? That's how we did it last time, I remember it. And it should be that way again, we shouldn't,
May I suggest that we table this as well, because there
That's
shouldn't be, I mean.
where we have to go.
If it gets delayed, it gets delayed,
I'd rather see more members for that vote.
and I'd like more information.
Yes, and
So-
Well, you're a representative, dig.
what
Give
the
it to
membership
us.
dues are.
Give us, we'll accept your valued opinion.
Okay, very good. I ain't paid the bill.
Yeah, we moved from that for a while.
Can we request from the selectmen a copy of the dues
The bill,
bill
yeah.
for review?
Okay, could you make a note of that? I can ask Rich for that, he'll give it to us. I'm quite sure. Actually, I'm probably better off with Mary Lou. Might be right in there, actually. I'll probably take, look at the selectmen's box, I bet you it's right in there. There's a pending select, well, I don't know, maybe they've changed it.
Am I violating some rule by not going into their,
I'm looking over here, I'm not seeing anything.
So what's an NPO?
Metropolitan Planning Organization. It's the kind of the structure for planning and the conduit of funds for transportation.
I don't think they're gonna reject our attempt to pay the dues, no matter when we do it, so we can have the discussion and go from there, I guess. So we'll table it. And let's go to the books.
okay, there was a discussion last week about how many books that I picked up, and there was do you have a copy of the bill that we got from SRPC stating that we owed for, I think it was 14 books, 13 books?
So, no, I don't.
I do.
I don't have a copy. It was
I do.
submitted.
Yeah, because I ended up being in the middle of that. It's,
Because there's no way for me to verify exactly or remember how many books I picked up. I thought it
I thought it was less than that.
Okay, so, their administrative assistant responded to my email. Okay, I told her that Ed Comeau had gotten 3 copies, well, it doesn't matter the rest. What matters is what she said. She wrote to me, as I explained to Ed in the email copy below, we were in a position where we had to request payment prior to ordering the books, meaning the books, the most recent set of books, due to unpaid invoices. We did not receive an order from the town before that deadline. We did reach out with a letter and followed up before the deadline date. With that said, we did order a few extra books. We'd be happy to sell you 3 books only and 1 book CD. You'd be able to pick these up at SRPC office, at which time we would need a cash payment for the unpaid invoice from last year for $28, plus a full payment for the 4 2018 PLUR books, which equates to $30.25. Both invoices are attached.
So what was the amount of books that they said that we owed?
28 from the previous year.
But it doesn't say how many books.
No,
See, I don't know what's right.
but it's $28.
So it's 58, so around almost 60 with the 2 invoices.
Right, but that's 2 years worth of,
Yeah,
did you
yeah.
get books from them last year? Or did you get them all from,
I cannot remember.
Oh,
Considering we sent the school 7 digits, $50 seems like a paltry sum.
to have the updated books?
Yeah. Now,
Because
how many-
you were told from OSI that they're like $70 a piece, aren't
Either
they?
81,
Okay,
80 something.
so it's a bargain.
Yes, what are we paying per book? $5 or $6?
11 or something. How many books do we have now? Do we have enough new books?
So,
I thought we had discussed this a couple of months ago, and I thought we had paid that balance. Am I wrong? I thought,
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, I don't know. I wasn't involved at that point months ago, so
At the last meeting, I was specifically given instructions of supplying those invoices to the treasurer, which I did.
okay, all right,
And the treasurer
all right.
presented those to the Board of Selectmen at the subsequent Board of Selectmen meeting, and I was sitting in the audience, and they looked at it and debated and questioned whether or not, why, first of all, why there were 2, and then she looked at last year's and she said, I paid that.
Yeah, she showed me the actual payment.
Oh, she did pay it?
Yes, it shows that it was paid.
Okay.
That's why I'm trying to figure out exactly who's right and who's
So
wrong.
somebody needs to, there just needs to be a person, presumably it would be Mary Lou, that would then communicate and provide the documentation that indeed payment was sent to SRPC.
a canceled check photocopy would
Right,
really
so
work.
that then we can get the books for this year for $30.25.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the answer is I will call Shayna up and I'll find out, the administrative assistant down in SRPC, and I'll find out what her information is, the information the treasurer has, and we'll straighten that out. And then we'll pay the bill. And if not,
Yeah.
I'll just pay the bill, it's $28.
No, that's silly. Well, town will pay it if it owes it. If Mary Lou already paid it, she'll have documentation that she already paid it.
What's more important to me, Mr. Chairman, is that when we need new books next time, we don't
They give
do
it to
this
us.
again.
Yeah.
So
Thank
we,
you.
obviously, the new procedure is that we have to put in an order and pay it up front by a certain date. That can be added to the rules of procedure.
How much will the books cost when we do the upfront order? Less money, isn't it?
Oh, a lot less.
Yeah.
Between $8 and $11.
Yeah, versus 81.
So whatever that date is, we should fill out a form and coordinate with SRPC and give them the cash so they can order the books and they'll send
Do
it.
they notify us as to when the date is, or do we have to go and ascertain that for ourselves?
Oh, when is this for?
Is it right in the book? I mean, I don't know.
Maybe she
I
could
was
tell
thinking that
you.
would be a follow-up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll follow up on that, find out. And then
That'd be
next,
good, because as long as we know, then we can act. If we don't know, we'll just skate on by that time again.
my question is, are we all set with the updated books? I know I had received from OSI, Office of Strategic Initiatives, some books. Do we have, everybody has one now?
No,
I don't.
No,
I don't.
we only received 3 that you were.
So we only have 3.
3.
So now what are we gonna do about that?
So Shana has 4 of them, or she has,
Oh, that
she has
wasn't
3
told?
books. What
Okay.
did I just read? 3 books and 1 CD?
Well,
What did I just read?
let me ask you
If they're
this.
still available.
So is 6 books enough for all of us? And 1 for the road agent, I think it
There's
was?
6 of us.
Well, the land use issues, let's face it, we're not gonna sit around writing statutory law here. But when we do have something to determine, whether it's some sort of site plan review or construction of an ordinance that's affected by land use, we generally do it at a meeting or construct of a meeting in between, you know, and the books that are available can be shared at those meetings. I'm sure if somebody wants to take one home and read through it, and somebody would lend them a book. I don't know that we absolutely have to, everybody has their own, you know.
So if it's acceptable to the chair, I will go down to SRPC, get the other 3 books, so at least we'll have at least 6. And that should be enough.
What's our board membership?
What's that?
6.
6.
Yeah.
Do the selectmen have one? They need one. Or do they already have one?
Well, the road agent needs one.
Mr. Chairman, so in the past, the planning board had bought enough for the selectmen, but it was decided, I believe, 2 years ago that we would no longer provide that service.
Yeah, the heck with that. The road agent needs one, yeah. Well,
Code enforcement officer.
yeah.
And we'll get the CD also.
I don't see why 6 is gonna be an impairment. Most of the work we do with that is right here.
That's why I said if it was acceptable to you all, pick up the other 3 and take care of the bill and
Well, let's do that. Next year, we'll make sure we order enough so that everybody gets one. I don't see any reason to spend $81.
no, we just gotta make sure in the rules of procedure, we know that we sign the form and send it in and get them ordered, so we don't read.
I'm only an acting temporarily chair, though, so don't take my word for much.
Mr. Chairman, if I make another suggestion, since on the basis of what Mr. Comeau just said, we may want to put that under the annual document that we have inside the inside the rules of procedure.
And we have a schedule, list if you're talking. We have a schedule now, when we're supposed to do like pit inspections, what time of year we do this, what time of year we do that. And we could add that to that list so we have it in our calendar.
When was that created? Not when I was here.
It was when you were not here.
It should be near the very.
Yeah, because that was, we were missing a lot of things.
Current planning board activity.
Which is actually a good segue to old business. This is the month of May.
Oh, it's May already.
Okay. That was a good idea.
So we'll add,
Mr. Chairman, maybe a planning board member might like to suggest where this should be added to that activities, the annual activities list, like what month?
In what month?
It's gonna find out when
Yeah.
when they're available.
I'll find out when they have to order and then I'll coordinate that date with the next meeting. Makes sense?
yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Books.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just one last thing then. Since that's going to be a pending change to the rules of procedure, then we may want to postpone also the changes that we've already agreed on until we have that specific month to put in the activities calendar. So that
Wait,
we're
we
not,
can change it once.
Wasn't that the point we made before, not to actually make the changes just yet until we review this and make sure we aren't gonna do a lot, so you don't print 3 times?
yeah, so we should at least very least postpone it to the next meeting for sure.
Yes.
Perhaps the one after, depending on how much work we find out that we have to do.
Thank you.
But the reason behind it, or rules and procedure changes before were just for record, for now, until we look over the rules and procedures and come up with any other changes. My understanding of the 2 motions we made previously was just for record, when the time comes for George to amend it, he has those items already there. They've already been decided on.
Yeah, we've decided on those specific items.
Yes, you have. And this would be in addition to that, once that information is available and after our discussion next month. So we're not asking George to act on it right now. We're only asking him to note it in the minutes so that it's
Right.
there for us for him in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that clarifies everything for me.
Very.
Outstanding. Any other old business anyone can think of that I'm not aware of? And I'm not an old business guy, I get to love it. I'm into the new business.
Mr. Chairman,
You have a hand up.
We should on the,
It's May. We-
Inspectors to inspect gravel pits. How many we have going in town now? Anything new? There's the,
we,
Ed, you had done the.
myself and Selectman Surratt went out last year, so I'm assuming we would do that again.
is it Long Meadow? Still the only
It's
guys?
The Smith Pit and.
Smith Pit.
and I believe the Nason Pit, they call it.
Nason Pit?
Nason.
Is somebody, well, Eddie sold that, didn't he?
Still a pit.
No, I understand, but there's a new owner. Are they mining it?
Guess
Don't
we'll
know.
find
We don't
out.
know.
Guess we'll find out.
Well, you have
the
to,
record is-
you have to actually ask them.
Yes. We
Because
have-
nobody will remember how much sand is going.
We have a whole procedure on how to do this, and what we do need to do is we at least have to notify the 2 pits ahead of time, just so they know
Yeah.
we have permission.
Yeah, I was an inspector for a number of years, yeah, you have to make an appointment. And you actually have to have the permission.
Yep. And we usually send out a letter to the 2 pit owners.
It's the administrative assistant, sure. Do you have the names of the owners? I mean, you must.
What, I do not have the name of the new owner.
Of Ed Nason's?
Yes.
Well, we can get that from him without any trouble at all. But you have the Smiths.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, I would also say that now the pit has changed names, we should make sure that that name is on the record.
You
So
mean,
next year, the new.
up at, yeah, whatever the last name of the people that own the property is what it should be called. So there's no confusion at all.
So we don't keep calling it a Mason pit.
Yeah. Because we'll probably wind up billing Ed. I don't like that. Well,
Do we need a motion to send out a letter?
I don't think so.
What's that?
I was gonna ask that, yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, it's part of our procedure. At a certain time of the year, you do what you have to do. It's like going, we don't have to make a motion to buy the book.
Do we have to change, do we have to wait till the next meeting to find out when we should go out? Because we want to make sure we have the letter back, the letter's back saying we have permission. So if we find out next week we have permission, can we?
I have a question. In the past, did you send a letter out with a return address envelope?
I did not.
How do we get in touch with them? What we do?
I found them after I sent the letter out. So the letter was basically a notification. And then on the basis of that, then I would ask them when would be a good time for us to go down there. And then I would approach the board with that information. You know, like they would say Mondays is a good time for me, or Thursdays or whatever, and I'd approach the board. Then I would set up a solid time between the board and them, letting them know.
Did you do a telephone mostly? That's how I did it when I inspected them. I just met the guys there because I know them and we walked through them.
Mr. Chairman, as long as it states somewhere that we've received some information back saying it's okay to enter the property, I think it'll be okay.
I was loath to enter the property without them being there when I did it. I met them there, so there were no issues. But if you're gonna go walking around out there, you want written permission if they're not gonna be there, yeah. So it should be a mail thing, and if we're gonna get written permission, we send them a small little envelope and ask them to, we'll make up it should be, we grant permission to Brookfield inspectors to enter the premise and examine the gravel pit, and they sign it and put it in a self-addressed stamped envelope and drop it in the mail. That's how it really should be done, if we're gonna do it that way. And if we're going on the property without them present, we really need to get written permission, that's the way it is.
And the inspection report, Appendix Y, has the map, lot, owner, agent, date, inspectors, which we had we redid this also when you were gone. Well, when you were gone, we redid this.
Yeah, I see that.
appendix. I believe the rules procedures tell you.
So, it is May, and it is time to initiate that. Are you going to initiate that, George?
Yes, sir.
Are you going to make the self-addressed stamped envelope with a permission slip?
Yes, I will.
Mr. Chair, that's what the letter looks like. I think we also came up with that. And that's what gets sent out.
Right here.
Oh, I have one right in front of me, yeah. Great.
You're suggesting a change in the procedure, though. I'm not saying it's a bad change, but
Well, technically, you don't have the right to walk on anybody's land without their permission. That's the way it is. So, this is not a permission slip here. This is a notification. The planning board will contact you to schedule an inspection time for the month of June. And I would imagine that if they're going to meet you there, that's fine. But if you're going to verbally contact them, I don't think it's gonna cut the mustard. It's just, we need to send, the planning board respectfully requests your permission to inspect this premises. It just has to be thought out and written properly, but it doesn't have to be lengthy, but if, we would prefer your presence, but if you wish us to inspect at our convenience, would you please give us this written permission? So we have to word it a little differently, but we need to say that, yes.
This is dictated by an RSA. Same thing, inspection, is it dictated by an RSA?
Yes, RSA 155E.
So whatever the rule is there would be the inspection has to take place.
Agreed, but you still need permission if you want someone's property.
Agreed, but isn't it?
Unless you suspect a violation, then you don't need a permission.
Right, so I feel that our procedures that we have in place now satisfies that because they are receiving a notice that inspection is due. The assistant is following up to schedule that appointment. They're aware. They can make a determination of whether or not they're going to be present. Perhaps at that time, a written document stating that the planning board has permission to conduct this inspection without their attendance.
I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just saying that if you're going on their property.
I understand, but what I feel we need to, last year we ended up in November, the inspections took place. So we need to put this in motion without adding any more details to the process that may hinder it from getting done.
Yeah, I agree, and I know they're good old boys, and they're the only game in town except for Nason's Pit, which needs a name change. But legally, you're not supposed to be walking on people's property without their presence. That's the way it
We have a procedure to get that permission, and if it's not, if you don't have permission to do that, it's, an RSA is dictating that you need to have the inspection done. So they would be not complying, So-
Non-compliance is dictated by the fact that we didn't ask for permission slip to go on the property.
That's not what
If
I'm-
they
that's not
say
what I'm
you
saying.
can't come
I'm saying
here-
the procedures are, we have a procedure set up to get permission from the landowner to conduct this survey. So.
Let me draw a scenario for you. The landowner
Right.
says, you can go out there. I don't have to be there. And that's verbal permission. And you go out there and you fall in a pit and break your leg, that man can be sued. Because there are, what's the word I'm looking for? There's so many ways things can get goofy. It was like the fellow with the lot line change. If it didn't consummate the sale, then it was a subdivision. I mean,
Well, we can't sit here and discuss all the variables and possibilities of an inspection, but what we can do is put the wheels in motion to get this action that needs to be done.
yeah,
done.
yes, and if
So
they want you
let's
to...
not debate it, let's get it in motion and follow it through.
Agreed, but the point I was making is if they're going to say, go out there, I don't care when you go, that's all fine, we shouldn't be out there without saying, okay, then we'll say, okay, would you please sign a permission slip at that point. You shouldn't just walk out there because they said, go ahead and go out there. That's what I'm getting at. I don't know how we're going to achieve that, but that's what should be done.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it's not gonna hold up anything. What happened in the past is we were following our procedure, but since we knew both pit owners.
Yes.
All I did is ask,
You're allowed
make sure they know that
Yes.
we're going out there so I don't get shot. That's it.
Exactly.
So, but what's different now is that there's a new owner.
Yep.
And I don't know who that guy
Yes.
is, or woman is, I don't know who it is.
Yes.
All I'm saying is, I just want to make sure that the other, the Smith, we could call the Smith pit owner, and they'll say, okay, I don't have a problem with that. But I think in the future, we should add a step that you're talking about.
We don't really have a choice.
I know, but I'm just saying that the reason why I brought it up is because there's a new owner, and we have to contact the new owner, who may not be aware of the RSA, so we don't get shot, or I don't get shot since I'm gone.
Well, perhaps the new owner doesn't want to use it as a pit anymore.
Yeah, we don't even know the status of it.
That's right. So, I mean, that's why, as I'm suggesting, we get this going, George has a conversation, reports back to the planning board, and then we know where we're at.
Get it going. If they say go out there, then say, would you sign a permission slip? We appreciate that. It's our rules of procedure. They'll be fine with it. I know the place. I don't know the fellow that
Well,
makes
it's
it.
not our
Well,
rules of
technically,
procedure.
it's not our.
It's not our rules of procedure.
We have to work on
We
We're gonna have to
need to-
adjust it. That may be one of the items.
Right.
It's one of the items that we're gonna go home and have homework about to have
Yeah.
changed. Let me write that down.
Well, this was supposed to be a simple suggestion to get this underway.
Yes.
Who made that suggestion?
That was me. I'm not going
Move on
out
to
there
old
and getting
business.
shot.
Yes.
We move on to old business, please.
That was old.
That is old business.
I'd
We
like to
have more.
I have more old business.
Let's go to more old
He's got a
business.
lot
I
of
think
old
that,
business.
that thing is,
I'll be very brief. So, where is the status of our survey mailing for the master plan?
So that's, Mr. Chairman, is it okay if I speak?
absolutely, George. I don't know the status of it.
So I'm very frustrated at this point dealing with click to mail, because as of last time, I informed them of the board's decision to pay this.
Yep.
All right. Then they wanted a credit card. I said, we don't have a credit card. So I suggested that, I do know that they allow some kind of invoice situation. Well, they were supposed to get back to me with that information, and they said they even contacted my phone. They said they sent it to me, and they haven't sent it to me.
Mhm.
So I have to say, I'm getting very annoyed and frustrated with them. Okay, so I'm sure there's a way to get through this. One possible way would be maybe for me to contact the treasurer and ask her if she has a credit card that
Sure.
she's responsible for town, but that's where we are right
Okay.
now. And so as a result, that holds up everything else.
Yes.
You know.
She's the treasurer and she handles the banking?
Yes, she does.
Well, I'm sure that there's a debit card involved, which is a credit card in the sense that
Yes,
it will work in the same fashion.
yes,
I'm sure it exists.
yes. But the Click to Mail has assured me that there is an invoice policy and that, it would be pretty straightforward, and we're not touching bases for some reason.
They can't just send an invoice and get a payment?
There's some kind of procedure where they want information from me, but they've never emailed that to me, and they assured me that they did, so something's not right.
Is this a legitimate company? Or
Um,
are we going through like Paraguay? Excuse me,
The only thing is, the people that I've contacted by phone are very professional, and they're able to be concise as far as the information, but all of a sudden not coming to a standstill with this particular situation. I'll, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I will contact the treasurer and see if there's a way by which we can proceed with this.
If they're insisting on a card, I'm sure she has something. They were the low price spread, right? If I remember correctly.
It was low price, and then all of a sudden there was a misunderstanding as far as what constitutes a page. So there was an increase in that. I interceded and talked them down somewhat. And then what happened was the planning board had made a vote to
Yeah.
pay the larger amount.
I remember that.
What was the larger amount again, 600?
600 something, I still
Yeah.
have.
I'm ready to go with my check, go to the place, sign it, and get it done. The government's going so slow, it drives me crazy.
It's terrible.
Washington DC, imagine.
Yeah, just pages.
Yeah.
So, the action item from last month was for me to look into the online survey as an option.
Survey.
Yes, which I did. So I looked into the report, SurveyMonkey offers a free service to do an online survey. You have unlimited amount of surveys, but you can only ask 10 questions. So their basic plan is $37 a month if you want to do an online survey with them.
$370 per question?
37, what's that? $37 a month, and you can do unlimited surveys and as many questions as you want.
You can't just buy one? Or
No, it's a subscription service, so they're trying to get you roped into multiple months of usage. So my suggestion, which I would happily compose, would be to do a Google form survey, which I've done in the past in a previous town. Last time I lived in, I did a online survey using Google, which worked just fine. We just had a link on our website, which populated. You went to the link, and it was the survey. You populated with your answers, and it tabulated it for you into pie charts and data from there. So it's free.
No, what do you find better, the Google form or the SurveyMonkey?
Well, I've never used the SurveyMonkey to do this. I've only used the Google Forms because it's free. So and there is some formatting there in Google Forms to present it, but I'd be happy to take that on. I just need a Word document of our survey, and I can make a draft for us, and we can send it around to the planning board members to review and before we make it live.
Does it look
It looks like a survey.
coherent? I mean, it
Yeah.
looks like nobody's gonna get confused. They're not gonna open it up and not know what they're looking at.
No, it looks
a.
like a survey.
it'll
Check
look-
boxes and places to put in comments.
So it looks just like our survey?
Yeah.
Okay, just didn't know.
Yeah,
what
with
the
little
format
check
was.
boxes that you would click on, and you can govern how many selections you're allowed to make within a.
It's unfortunate we don't have everybody's email on a master computer that we could just send them out.
Well, we do have the email blast that they do through the town for meetings and things like that, which we could use. But a link on the website would be enough. We did that. It was the Conservation Commission I was on before where we did that. We just had a link on our town website, and we were a town of 2,000 people, and we had 170 responses.
For the email blast, people would have to be signed up for that anyway, right?
They would not, no, they would just get for the email blast, yes. But they would, yeah,
For the Google thing, it's on the website, they'll click.
they just click on it, they're there, that's right. So,
And Mr. Chairman, we also talked about having, I believe there's another coffee coming up at the end of the month. Do we have copies of this survey that can be at the, because
I can do that.
Are they gonna do coffee?
I,
Because it's Labor Day week, excuse me, Memorial Day weekend? I don't know.
I don't know.
The average participation is about 20 people.
Well, I hope it's better.
Well, that's the average.
You talking about the coffee, or are you talking about?
Coffee.
Oh, yeah, I meant coffee.
Oh, yeah, the coffee, not the survey.
No, I meant,
Paper copies.
I meant the areas that we said that we wanted to put the survey would be the clerk's office,
Yeah.
the survey online, and here, or somewhere else. Where else were we supposed to put the surveys?
I think we were just gonna bring them to town functions, was the coffee, like you stated.
But do we have them printed out, or we have to wait for that point click, whatever it's called, to do it?
I can print out those documents you're talking about, so if, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry,
No, it's all right.
sometimes I forget my place.
It's okay. We're having a nice discussion here.
If the planning board decides what would be a good number, I'll just make copies.
Well, just make 20 copies and maybe put 10 here and
How much are we paying the company to make?
Let's see, I believe the figure that was given was 480, I believe it is?
The residents of Brookfield.
Yes.
Well, we don't want to duplicate
Taxpayers.
that, but 20, 30 of them should, at least, it's a startup, right?
And
How
what-
many pages?
5.
5?
Double-sided.
And Mr. Chairman, what I would like to see also is that board outfit, the sandwich board, say something about, and coordinate that with when they get mailed. So people are reminded every time they pass by here, fill out that survey they get in the mail.
You know,
And then carry them around with you in the car, and you see somebody, hand to them.
we should put a big banner up on the townhouse. Fill out your survey. I think that sounds silly, but I
So
have a machine that makes banners.
speaking of the extra copies, though, is it cheaper for them to print an overage for us to use than it is to print them on our printer here?
I don't, honestly, I believe that we could print it either the same price or cheaper than what they're doing, but their price.
That's right, because theirs is mailing as well.
That's right.
Okay, all right, sorry.
It's posted mailing in hand. That's
Okay,
correct.
never mind.
I mean, I got a laser printer at home, you could print out, 20 copies, it's only 5 sheets of paper, I mean.
Yeah, it's the copy of the collate and double-sided.
Yeah.
There you go, set.
You can do double-sided with that thing, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want to see this go on month
Yeah,
after month after
agreed.
month. It's like, the last coffee, I thought we had the surveys over there ready, because I was ready to start selling.
And we're going to reconstruct a master plan with, in consideration of the results of the survey.
That's all for my,
It'll be the third master plan reconstruction I've been involved in.
So you're going to work on that Google form.
I can, yes.
Do we have to see that Google form before we?
I would, yes, I would say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't hold up doing the hard copies and handing them out.
No, because we can use the, it was brought up
It needs to be
last month that we could use SurveyMonkey or the online
resuscitated is probably.
survey to input the paper surveys, so that we would have it all in
Think
one
what?
place.
Black.
Oh, that would be a good idea.
Right.
If I hammer 55 different keys.
We only should have one conversation going on.
Contact Microsoft to fix this problem. How do you do that?
Mr. Chairman.
He's got a
Mr.
question.
Chairman?
Real quick.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
When the Google form is made and people are filling out hard copy, we're going to get those hard copies and we're going to input them
Yes.
into the form, because the form will tabulate everything for us.
Right.
So we're just making you aware if that's what we have to do. And
Yeah, I
when
get
people
it.
hand us a hard copy that they filled out, we have to input that into that Google.
Right, so that we can get
Correct.
the whole picture, yeah.
Just-
And then we're gonna work on the master plan based on what that people actually want in Brookfield,
Correct.
given the majority of the responses, so.
I'll say it again, I've said it a million times. The fact that we're gonna work on the master plan in any form, we should put it on the agenda
I'm sorry.
every meeting.
Yeah.
So the
Yes.
public is fully aware that we're working on the master plan. Like, get this, get it really into people's mind that we're working.
Yeah, and
then
that'll
they
be
can come
posted,
in
et cetera, sure.
And
Should
get
be
them to
under
come in.
old business every time at least.
And I believe we were gonna put something in the paper, weren't we?
Sure.
Yeah, I held back on that on the basis of the survey.
Coordinating.
Yes, because it doesn't make sense for me to put that in the paper and they haven't received the survey for a month or whatever it is.
No, we don't post our planning board meetings in the newspaper.
No.
We used to,
No.
many, many years ago.
Will you pass that
Not
on to
since
the
I've been here.
permanent chair?
Which aspect?
To put this on the agenda?
Master plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
All I'm trying to do is make sure the town and everybody knows that that is on the horizon.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we're asking for the survey, correct? yeah,
And if,
sure.
listen, if nobody comes in, at least we did our due diligence to make sure that people knew about it. And talk about it everywhere you go.
There should be a way to market this, actually. In other words, this is your town, and what you want is what you're gonna get if you participate, perhaps.
Well, master plan isn't really designed to give people things. That's not really what its purpose is, but.
It's so much things, but an environment, call it environment. It doesn't have to be a thing, it can be an environment. That's what the master plan's all about anyway.
Shaping the future.
Yes. Anybody else, any more old business? Any member comments, public comments?
I have some member comments.
Done, go.
So, couple of items. A year and a half ago, just over a year ago, it was February of last year, 2017, in the context of I'm talking about SRPC coming to visit the Board of Selectmen. And it was in the context of developing the 10-year transportation plan for the state of New Hampshire and seeking information. But they also, they had two presentations, or two folks from SRPC, and one was the economic development guy, planner, excuse me. And they asked the question, because they were preparing a comprehensive economic development strategy, basically a local economic development plan for SRPC region, or perhaps a subset of the full region, I'm not quite certain. And the Board of Selectmen had made the comment that one activity that perhaps could be attended to would be to improve our internet access, particularly for home-based businesses in Brookfield. As it turns out, I think I reported at our last planning board meeting, there was a meeting that last week that I had planned to, and I actually did attend. There was a joint presentation by the New Hampshire Broadband Mapping and Planning Program through the UNH in conjunction with DTC lawyers who are, I guess, heavily involved in the activities. And there were three components: broadband, cable franchise agreements, and wireless tower permitting. And it was open for well, I can't remember. I'm sure I got this through either SRPC or through you, George, through the Plan Link. I haven't had the time yet to organize all my thoughts about that, but it was a lot of it was new to me, and so I'm still sifting through it, an awful lot of information. But it was, there's multiple facets that relate to the infrastructure in our community, and also relates to the issues of the planning board with respect to wireless siting and maybe not other broadband and cable franchise, which is not really our bailiwick. But the opportunity, it was educational, and I will write up something that provides at least a summary of those three areas. But what I also learned, somewhat piqued by Executive Counselor Joe Kenny, having come to a Board of Selectmen meeting about a month ago, he talked about the North Border Commission, the North Border Regional Commission. And I had heard of that once before, and long story short, one of their focus points, in fact, their first focus point, is infrastructure improvements. And I looked into that a little bit. So back to SRPC and this economic development strategy, a comprehensive economic development strategy, they're doing an update. And I'm a little bit behind, frankly, this piece of mail got buried. And I will address the Board of Selectmen next week with that information to see whether or not they want to renew that interest as being part of that plan, to have to at least include Brookfield in the plan as needing or wanting to have an assessment or evaluation or some improvement, that there's a need for improvement in our broadband. The sad part was that when I learned about this broadband, and I complained that we have pretty awful broadband service, and I said, well, Brookfield's listed as having broadband. And then I find out that if they get one entity that has broadband within the census tract, the whole census tract has broadband. It's like, really? That doesn't make very much sense. And their definition of good broadband is 25 megabytes down, and I think it was 5 up. So, it's disappointing. So I think
Depending on where
that...
you're located.
That's exactly what it is.
So, anyhow, I think this is something that I think it would be helpful for the town if we can pursue something along these lines.
On that note, we had it on our agenda item, at least for a future item, was to go over our tower, the wireless tower ordinance. On that note, and on the second note is OSIP is actually joining in with, and I forgot the other two towns, it might be Freedom and Madison, to, I believe they've hired an attorney that they're all going to use to try to work with the local cable providers to expand their system to get a better agreement. And I believe Wakefield is also talking about doing something because they're very upset that they have a franchise agreement with the cable company, and the cable company still does not seem to want to put in more cable.
Well, you know what it boils down to, because I had a little experience with this. It's per capita footage, how many feet of cable you're going to run for what quantity of customers. And they've got their policies, and that's what they adhere to. And they are not interested in being nice people. The cable companies are not going to run a mile of cable for 5 residents. They're just not going to do it. And nobody can really make them. We are fortunate enough to have Lyford Road. I'm one of the lucky people. Because we've got 50 houses on the silly road. So they ran the cable. But it's too bad.
And interestingly, it's not a public utility in New Hampshire, and so it's not regulated. And what's really also what I learned is that the only latitude that the governing body has in interfacing with the cable company is the cable.
Hmm.
That just the TV portion,
Yep.
nothing else.
Yep.
And that's, but evidently there are pockets of competition in other areas, in not particularly urban areas, in other parts of New Hampshire where I can't remember the name of the company, that has just invested in expanding their capability for, I think it's even fiber optics. Anyhow, so it was some of it just was so new and foreign to me, it didn't all sink in, but very interesting. Back to the wireless sighting, is that they really stressed that if something does happen, there's, she called it a shot clock. I mean, there's a very specific, and this is on the, evidently federally regulated, in terms of once an application comes in or is received, the clock starts. It doesn't matter if there's anybody to deal with it, like in small towns like ours, where we meet once a month. That clock starts as soon as it arrives in the facility, and you know, the clock starts ticking. So I don't know that somebody told me that, you know, it wasn't at this meeting, but anecdotally, that Brookfield isn't a good candidate for wireless technology. Oh, and that was another thing about the 5G, the next generation. I've been hearing suggestions that might be a great thing for Brookfield. Not the way that it was described at this meeting. It sounds as though the way it was described is the vastly expanded speed is dependent on having a fiber optic network to pick up it's kind of distributive, sort of. They put like nodes in like neighborhoods, and then it goes. The reason it's fast is it's through a fiber optic network. Well, that's great in like Portsmouth. You know?
Right, yeah.
Well, see, the FO line has to already be run
Right,
in order for them to put the nodes in.
right.
Yeah.
It's just like when they put in 4G down like Route 101, 101 out of Exeter and all the way down through. I mean, that line already had to be there.
Yes.
4G capable line.
That's the
Same
problem.
thing with FO line, fiber optic. Has to be run already.
There's a line on 109 that links Fairpoint's station in Wakefield to the one in Wolf.
But it's not fiber optic.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it?
Yes, I went out and at the end of my driveway when they were putting up the line. And they said, no, it's fiber optic. I said,
Is that
great.
who you were yelling at on the line? You wanted to see the
When
end
did
of
I
that
get
wire?
it? Oh, no, nobody can tap into it. I was like, what?
Why can't anybody?
That was like 5 years ago. So
Yes.
maybe things have changed.
But that was before the Fairpoint purchase.
No, it was after, it was Fairpoint then.
Because where we lived, Verizon went through, laid down all this fiber optic with the intent of installing it, but then they did it as a way to kind of boost their sale to Fairpoint. And they never, it was sitting outside our house for 5 years and you couldn't tap to it because.
Well, is the ultimate goal to do something to improve this in the town?
I think that's, well, so,
How do we go about that?
that's a good question. And
Well, that's
I
why I
think
mentioned-
that's what we need to, that I think that's worthy of discussion, whether it's with this board, whether it's with the Board of Selectmen, whether it's, within the community. But and part of it will be driven by the survey results. Do people want I find it hard to believe that people wouldn't want improvements in the infrastructure. Then the question is, how do we get it? How much do we pay for it? How does it happen? And so I don't know, but I think that
Go ahead, this is the floor is wide open.
Diane, when are you gonna speak to the selectmen about that?
Tuesday.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of communications is still line of sight dependent.
Right,
So that's why one of the Wi-Fi options is not gonna function for us.
yeah.
Because there's a lot of places that are just no line of sight because of the hills.
Yeah.
So,
You know, let me, I mentioned it to the selectmen about this lawsuit that, not lawsuit, it was more of a combined effort to come up with a better franchise agreement with the companies. Let me find out more about that. I mentioned it to the selectmen, but it really didn't go anywhere. To see, you know, what they're actually doing and if it started already or if we can jump on board and how much that costs and stuff like that.
With what, cable?
Yeah,
yeah.
Who do they use as a cable provider in those towns?
I can't tell you.
Getting them to run the cable is the whole crux of it. That's the whole thing. Once the cable's run, the rest is easy.
Believe it or not, I chair the Brookfield Cable Committee. When I went out and went to the company, I went to, I guess it was Time Warner back then, and I asked them, what do you need from us to expand your system? What are you looking for? Do you want me to get I was gonna go around and get a list of customers for them, do the legwork and show them, look, we have this many people that are gonna sign on. What do we need to get you to do it? They did not want to have the conversation at all. It was the strangest thing. It's like, I thought you would want business.
Well, look at the dollars and cents of it. Examine it at the root. You run a cable in an urban area, and let's just pick an arbitrary number of $50 a month. And you run 5 miles of cable and pick up 10,000 customers. Times $50 a month, you've just made $500,000. If you run 5 miles of cable in Brookfield, you pick up 150 customers, which is, $1,000 a month. So that's where they're gonna spend the time and effort. We're in the urban areas first, and maybe they'll get around to the peripheral places someday, but I already asked that question to a couple of people. One guy puts in cell towers, and he told me the same thing about cell tower. They won't put a Wi-Fi tower anywhere in this town because it's not geographically
Right.
suitable, conducive.
I mean, there's other options. I mean, you can have a municipal type of deal. And I don't know for sure if Tamworth does this, but I had mentioned how do you get they have very good coverage, and they said because they hired a company. And what the details were, I don't know.
How many people in their town? Do you know?
Well, they got 600 people even in the meeting, so it's about over 600 at least. But they said that's how they took care of it. Now, do we want to go into municipal, having municipally owned internet and do what Burlington, Vermont did and get themselves in all kinds of trouble doing that and taking out grants and bonding and everything else? I doubt it, but it's an option.
Well, the only problem with stringing your own cable is you gotta maintain your own cable.
You can hire a company. They can put stuff.
So,
Well, you hire it out, we're not gonna climb the poles, that's not what I meant.
You don't have to
But it's ours to maintain once you do
The
that.
city of Philadelphia has public Wi-Fi, and they have their units on all the poles. So wherever you are, you get a lot of
It's
it
urban.
for it, and you do it. Yeah, but that can be done anywhere. I have no idea why they don't do it here. You have poles all over the place.
Not enough people per
Quantity.
capita to pay for it.
They're just gonna put their eggs in the biggest
it's
basket,
gonna be
that's all.
cheap enough to deploy in a place where you can have low subscribership.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I wanted? I wanted the company to explain that. I wanted them to say, this is why we're not doing it. They just didn't want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to explain to me why you can't do this.
Because we don't like your face.
The lawyer was very clear that the cable companies they just do things one way.
Now, to go back to your SEDS, or the comprehensive economic development strategy thing, does Brookfield have to do something to get into that? To get into the?
No, just, there's a project listed already in the plan
Or I
for,
would say it was something we had to join or something.
no, it's not joining, it's just do they want that, what has happened Has anything changed, and do we want to include it in the next iteration of the plan? Is the
Okay.
way I understand the,
I don't want to be the party pooper, but I'm adjourning the meeting. We can have the discussion afterwards.
Well, not as a quorum, then we'll be illegally deliberating. So
We
as
can
soon-
talk about the
So as
hypotheticals.
soon as you adjourn, you
I
guys.
have
leave
to
this
go
room.
home.
You gotta leave.
It's 12 before it gets too late. Well, you're pretty adequately
We're done.
express yourself.
so did you?
I'm sitting in this seat tonight, the next night I'm gonna shut up.
You need a gavel.
Everything, George, you get all the paperwork you needed from us. We signed it, sealed it.
Yes, thank you.
Good night.